committee meeting to order. Any visitors wishing to address this committee, you may speak now. You'll have 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Oxdown, 2385 Sulphur Springs Road. The reason I'm attending this meeting, I brought my daughter with me. My concerns is, and I brought it up at the last meeting that we had, was the abilities to reevaluate our budgets that we're currently trying to use. I think we talked about the jail last time, about the $75 million proposal jail. Versus what the sheriff proposed was a $35 million jail. So we would save a lot amount of money. And the reason that's concerning to me right now, as I said, I'm a single parent father. You see this little girl in the back, I raised her by myself. So we get ready to go back to school. And the question and concern that I have for the county commissioner is if we had a hard time keeping our schools sanitized and clean prior to the COVID-19 and having to shut down our schools so they can get clean and so we can keep our kids and our grandkids safe, what are we going to do during this pandemic? I know we have come up with budgets, I know we have come up with ideas for the jail and things of that nature, but it seems like to me that saving some money right now is the key to combat this. I know we're going to have to reevaluate a lot of things that we do in Hamblen County right now. I know a lot of things were set in stone prior to the pandemic hitting this country, but what have we done since then to reevaluate, come back to the drawing board, and what have we done to say this can change? We can save money here, we can save money there, because I don't know about you, but I'm homeschooling, I'm working, I'm trying to do everything that I can do, and to think these kids are going to keep a mask on their face all day long. They're going to have to wash their hands. Guys and ladies, excuse me, we are up against a serious situation here. And if we're not careful, everything that's going on, the decisions that are made right now can be affected here in the fall. And our economy cannot afford another shutdown. So what can we do here in Hamblen County? We cannot worry what's going on outside of Hamblen County. We got to worry about what's going on here at home. What can we do to cut down our costs across the board? Not just the jail, from the bottom to the top. What can we do to make sure that when we send our kids back to school, I don't know if they're going to make it at the end of June, or excuse me, at the end of July, but what can we do to make sure our kids are safe and healthy? Thank you. God bless.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to address this committee? Seeing none, we'll move on. Old business. There being none. New business. We have the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget overview presentation. County Mayor Rick.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks everyone for being here this afternoon. And what I intend to do to start our budget process, which we do every year, is just give you a broad overview of what the budget looks like, what's in your notebook, what it looks like, and just kind of give you some perspective before we dive into the details starting Thursday. So I'll be hitting on some the big ideas that are in the budget, and then if you have any questions you can ask, but the details will be discussed later as you look through the schedule when we go through the different funds. Let's see. As we talk about the budget document, now this is going to be a fluid document. It'll change almost every meeting as new information becomes available from Nashville, especially in the revenue side of things, because of all the questions involving the impact of COVID. Today, and what you have in your notebook is draft 1, and depending on how long things go, we may have 2 or 3 drafts, or we may just have 1 or 2. So, but what's in your notebook is what we know today. So that's what you will hear about today. So what's the impact of COVID-19 on Hamblen County and in our finances? There's a lot of question marks about that because we just don't know. We don't know about our health, about the health of the economy, about the revenues. There's still a lot of questions out there exactly what the impact is going to be. And as time goes on, we've been able to figure out a few things, but the big revenue number that we're waiting on for this budget process will be the revenues collected in April during the shutdown, which we learn about in June. It's a 2-month lag before we know what they are, and so we don't have those numbers yet. What we're doing is just encouraging folks to continue to follow the CDC guidelines, and we're doing that throughout the county buildings. Courts are following the plan, the reopening plan that the state Supreme Court approved. We've got glass barriers on all our service counters now to protect our employees and the public. We've got 6-foot markers, especially at the county clerk's office, where we're expecting a big crowd the next couple of weeks because of the deadline for tag renewals for March, April, and May, which were all pushed back to June 15th. So Penny's preparing for a lot of traffic in her office in the next couple of weeks. We're also encouraging folks to be patient, especially about our economy as it re-energizes. I mean, we were going gangbusters before COVID-19, and Hamblen County was doing very well economically until the shutdown came. And then in this budget, one thing we'll have to do throughout the process, and then during the next fiscal year, is constantly review where we are and constantly look at our revenues as things change. Is the economy recovering what we anticipated, or is it not? And then look at the plan based on that. All right, here's the unemployment rates. Here's the big numbers impact from COVID. You can see how economically and in the jobs front we were doing very well the last 3 years. I was taught in economics class at Walter State years ago that virtual full employment is at 5%. So we've been at virtual full employment for the last 3 years, and then until April, until the shutdown, and then our unemployment went to 15.5%. So it'll be interesting to see how the employment picture improves. As far as manufacturing goes, 1 out of every 4 jobs in Hamblen County is in manufacturing. It's the strength of our tax base, and that's why overall the property tax burden of residential property owners is lower in Hamblen County. It's because of the commercial and industrial tax base that we have. Our economic development team has changed roles during the shutdown from recruiting to basically servicing our existing customers, our existing industries, how to deal with the federal, I guess all the red tape with the federal relief programs, and then with retention and trying to help them maneuver those programs as well. We're also preparing for the future where we have 2 empty buildings that we're marketing now. One's 180,000 square feet in the East Industrial Park, and one's 130,000 square feet in the West Industrial Park. And then we continue to develop the East Tennessee Progress Center down in Witt. So we'll have plenty of property to offer prospective companies. We have Van Hool. They're continuing to get their situation where they're ready to break ground this fall. And they've been spending a lot of time. They've had to redesign some of the engine and the emission system of their bus to meet EPA guidelines. And so that's what they've been working on, building a prototype and developing it and testing it. But that it should break ground this fall and be open in a couple of years. Also, something to look forward to, and this is in response to requests and demands basically from our employers is the expansion of TCAT. The state of Tennessee has appropriated about $14 million for the expansion, 43,000 square feet. Demolition has begun, and then the space will accommodate about 175 more students, which is about a 17% increase of enrollment. They'll be developing, in the addition, more welding booths. Their HVAC program will be in the new building. It's a trained certification program. Their machine tools CNC center will be in the new building, and then they'll have mechatronics and robotics in the new building, and it should be open in the fall of '21. Transportation, the new highway, what I call the Exit 4 connector, will open this fall if everything goes well. I went out there Sunday to take some pictures, and you can see on your screen, I looked in both directions, north and south, and so it looks like they're about ready to finish things up there. And then on Highway 11E or State Route 34, the state's in the right-of-way purchase phase, so you'll see a lot of empty buildings along 11E out on the east end, and that's because the state has purchased those. There's also going to be a redesign of the entrance to the East Tennessee Progress Center out on 25E, and to prepare for Van Hool and their suppliers that will be located in that park. And so the current design causes a lot of bottlenecks, and so the state of Tennessee has at the request of our state legislators and our economic development team redesign that exchange, and it'll be more efficient. And then out on the West Industrial Park, you'll see in the next year a new signal at Commerce Boulevard and East HA Highway to reduce the backup and traffic flow there. And then also what they call a J-turn at the intersection of 160 and Commerce Boulevard, which will make folks basically turn right out of the park. And then they can turn around later on down and go west if they need to. So those are some of the transportation improvements. So the budget process, we started this back in February when we asked the departments to start gathering their information and their requests. So we held budget meetings with each department in March individually. Chairman DeBoard and Shipley attended some of those as well, along with me and Finance Director and Brian Hurst. And so during the month of April, with the stay at home, that kind of stopped us cold in the process, and then we started back in May, compiled everything, and so that's kind of where we are today. Now, for some of you, this is your old hat at the budget process. Some of you, it's your second. Just want to touch briefly on some basics about county government and its structure. We have a fund accounting structure where you have what's in front of you on your screen, your general fund, your Board of Education fund, your debt service, your sanitation, your highway. So general fund is the one, the Sheriff's Department. That's the biggest department that's funded out of general. The court system is funded out of the general. All your courthouse offices are funded out of the general. Your health department, your nonprofits, all those folks are funded out of the general. Then you have your Board of Education, which is the largest budget of all of them. Your debt service, which is where we pay off our loans from. And then sanitation, which is garbage collection, and highway. And then we have our drug fund. And there's also a highway capital project fund that we have some activity in. So those are the funds that we'll be discussing during this budget process. Now, as far as revenue sources, local government, especially county government, is limited on where it can raise money to provide the services that our citizens expect to receive. Property taxes is, of course, one of the major sources. Sales tax is another source, and we'll discuss how that's divided. We have a $27 wheel tax that right now goes all toward the general fund. At one point, it was divided between the general fund and education, but it all goes to the general fund now. We have a lot of fees that we collect, and the state grants that we receive, and also some federal money that comes through state government. All right, here's on your screen is the current. This is the current property tax structure, the current one. And so the tax rate, we have two tax rates. We have a rate for property inside the city of Morristown, then we have a rate for property outside the city of Morristown. Now, they have, if you'll look and see that the general fund, the debt service, and the school, all those funds and all those tax rates are the same. So all property across the county is taxed for those expenses. The difference between the inside rate and the outside rate is the sanitation fund, because the county provides garbage pickup, recycle, and bulk waste pickup for citizens outside the city. And so the city residents are not charged that property tax, because the city of Morristown provides that service to city residents. So bottom line is the inside rate, the rate I pay as a city resident, the county rate is $1.90. And for those of you who live outside the city, you pay $2.13. And then what a penny will generate under the current tax structure is about $137,000 countywide. So those first three funds, general, debt service, and schools, a penny will generate $137,000. And then in the solid waste fund, it's about $51,000. All right, here's just a bar graph that kind of gives us some, I guess, information to compare our tax rates and how we compare to other communities throughout East Tennessee. And this is the combined city-county tax rate. And we are in the bottom third of all the communities in East Tennessee. Basically from Oak Ridge East, we're in the bottom third of that. And that's even after the 25-cent increase from the city of Morristown last year. So we are in the bottom third. Our reappraisal. We're in a reappraisal year. So what does that mean to us in this budget process? What does it mean to our citizens? Basically, we're in a 5-year reappraisal cycle that the assessor of property administers. And the purpose of the reappraisal is to equalize property values. Through that 5-year period, there'll be different areas of the county, different types of housing, whether it be residential, commercial, industrial, personal property, that will increase or decrease in value differently. And so what a mass reappraisal does is it kind of equalizes those property values so they are assessed and taxed equally and more fairly. In theory, this is how it goes. This year, in this reappraisal, property values went up on average 14.2%. Now, 5 years ago, as a result of the credit crash back around 2010, 5 years ago, property values actually went down. But this time, everybody knows pretty much that property values have been increasing over the past several years. Average increase was 14%. So, what does that mean? Your taxes are going to go up 14%? No, that's not what that means. What that means is that the state will come back to us with a certified tax rate. The assessor will send the state all their assessment data, and then the state will use that data and will calculate what's called a certified tax rate, which they will send back to us, which will generate the same amount of revenue as the previous tax rate. So let's say our outside rate is 1013. So a 14% decrease of that would be about 30 cents, roughly. So the tax rate would go down 30 cents, and that would generate the same amount of money as the 213. Now, there may be some additional revenue generated once we do the calculations, but that's because of growth. That would not be as a result of the certified tax rate. So, as far as individual property owners, if average was 14.2%, if let's say your appraisal went up 18%, then you'll have about a 4% property tax increase. So if it went, let's say it went up 10%, and the average was 14, then your taxes will go down 4%. And if it went about 14%, then you'll have no increase in your taxes. So that's how it works in theory. So 14% is kind of what you can grab onto in this reappraisal, and that was the average of increase. Okay, next, sales tax. All right, sales tax. About 93, 94% of sales tax is collected by businesses in the city of Morristown, and so they get the bulk of the sales tax. But what happens with every sales tax dollar, the first 50 cents of every sales tax dollar goes to education, and that's by state law. So if you buy something, you pay $1 in sales tax. The first local option dollar the first 50 cents goes to schools. The second 50 cents goes to the point of collection. So what's been happening since October, and I think I tried to explain this to you back then before it took place, but the state legislature passed the law that the internet sales tax collected on items sold online would go to the destination of where the merchandise was shipped. So there are more residential property owners outside the city of Morristown than inside the city of Morristown. And what had happened previously is, before that state law change, all the internet sales tax went into one bucket at the state level, and then was divided based on the current way that sales tax was distributed, which meant the city of Morristown got about 95% of it. Well, what happened since October was the county received more sales tax because of the online purchases. And so our sales tax before the shutdown in April, our sales tax outside the city of Morristown was up 14%. And so the growth was going to the sanitation fund, which needed that revenue. So the benefit of the internet sales tax law has really helped Hamblen County and helped other counties as well, especially some of the smaller counties who a lot of their folks shopped elsewhere and didn't shop in their county. On the diagram that's in front of you, on the chart that's in front of you, it kind of explains how we have budgeted sales tax in the proposal that's before you. And on the far right column is what is the budget. The next right column is what we expect this year to end. We expect this year to end about over $1 million of sales tax collected outside the city. And so we divide that among the general fund. A little bit goes to the general fund. Some of it goes to debt service, some highway, but the bulk of it goes to the sanitation fund for garbage pickup and brush pickup. So we had budgeted, let's see, we had budgeted right at $960,000 for this year, and we're going to receive, even with COVID and the shutdown, we're going to receive, we estimate, over $1 million. So we'll have about a $60,000 increase, which goes to sanitation. For next year, and the estimate that we're making is that we will still collect more than we budgeted this year, but it'll be less than what we anticipate collecting this year. So we'll go from 1,024,000 to about 958,000. And what we did to estimate that is we had 10 months of good data, 10 months of actual data. Then we estimated 2 months at 80% of the prior year. So what we estimated was a 20% decline in sales tax. And so that's how we got the 958,850. And the fund that will be impacted in this scenario is the sanitation fund.
Mayor,
Yes.
what you're saying then is that the projected total tax that we're receiving, you're calculating a loss this year in our sales tax from the previous year because of everything.
Correct.
Okay. And in that internet sales tax, do we have any, that only began in October, right?
Correct.
So do we have any idea, you said we're running about 14% up. Is that, you think that's gonna hold for us, or do we have any idea?
We don't have any idea,
Okay.
really.
I would imagine a lot more sales have been in homes recently.
That's why April's numbers are gonna be really interesting
Right,
to
okay.
see, yeah, that's right. I think our sales tax, I'm talking about the tax collected, the second half of the sales tax that goes to the destination, okay? I think we'll fare better because of what you're saying, than say the state owners do.
Okay.
Because they have the brick and mortar stores, which were closed.
A little bit comes our way now.
Every now and then. Every now and then. Okay, let's start talking a little bit about the general fund, just a broad stroke. This next slide is about, this is where we are. This is where we expect to finish the current year that we are in. We expect to finish the year $300,000 in the black, even with reduced revenue. Things were going really well, like I mentioned before, the stay-at-home order, but also because of our departments have managed their budgets really well. We delayed a couple of capital projects. Excuse me. And so we expect to finish $300,000 in the black, in which will increase our fund balance to over $6 million. Excuse me, I've got a case of
COVID.
well, yeah, right. Poison ivy, and I've had to take steroids for it, so that it affects my voice. I'm sorry, I'm not Hulk, it just affects it. Just impacts my voice. So now, the point I want to make in this is the budget that you passed last year was about $525,000 in the red. So we had a $525,000 deficit. But we're going to finish the year $300,000 in the black. So that's an $800,000 swing. And the reason I say that is just to kind of explain what we do with our revenues. We're very conservative with our revenue projections, and practically every year that I've been involved up here, our revenue is coming above what we projected. And then we also don't spend every penny that's budgeted either. So that's why we had this $800,000 swing, was increased revenue and then good management by our departments. So what's on your screen now is, this is a line graph that shows our fund balance since 2014-15. There were 2 years there that we used over, well, right at $1.5 million each year of our fund balance, of our reserves. And so, so we finished the year having to use our savings account, basically. And then in 2016-17, we raised taxes then, 11 cents in the general fund, and so that stopped the bleeding, and we were able to recover. Yes.
Back on what Joey said, it was about 525,000 short last year, and we took it out of debt service.
No. No, the 525,000 was, we budgeted general fund reserves to balance. Didn't come out of debt service. It was out of our savings in the general fund.
savings made up for that.
Well, no, we didn't spend it.
You
We didn't spend it. We didn't spend it, and our revenue came in higher than we projected.
Commissioners, if you would, when you're just going to speak, if you look at your microphone, if it's not green around the top, then we're not utilizing our speaker system and may have some problems with people hearing all the way in the back. So please utilize that.
So the line graph just kind of gives you the history of our fund balance and how we've grown it back, and we expect to finish this year over $6 million, and then the 2021 budget, we use a little bit of our reserves and go a little bit under $6 million. So the overall for next year, on the revenues, it's mixed. And what I mean by that is in some areas we've projected, and again, that first slide where it was the big question mark, some things we just don't know. We don't know how quickly the courts will be back in the full swing. That's controlled by the state Supreme Court. We don't know about business taxes. We don't know. We're just guessing. And we were involved, Ann and I were involved in different webinars and seminars on revenue projections and how to manage budgets in this time. And basically, they said throw history out the window because you just don't know. Because that's a lot of what we did to estimate revenue was based on what's our history. And so we've taken, I guess, data that we have and made the best estimates that we possibly could. So we've got, like for example, some of the revenues, and we'll go into more detail next week. But our business tax estimates are down. Our court fees and cost estimates are down. Our clerk fees estimates are down. Our state prisoner board bill, which means the state pays us for keeping state prisoners, is down. So all those are down. And then we've held property taxes flat and waiting until we get the reappraisal results. But fortunately, with all that said, we're estimating that revenues overall will be up about $40,000. Ultimately, a $21 million budget, they'll be flat. But our expenditures are down $225,000. And most of that is from capital. And we removed all the capital from the budget, all the flooring, all the cars, all major equipment has been removed from the budget, and I'll go into that in just a second. And so, but that still leaves us about $260,000 in deficit. Now remember, the point I made about in the current year budget where we passed the budget $500,000 in the red and plan on ending up $300,000 in the black. $260,000 to me is practically a balanced budget because we budget our revenue so conservatively. So that's kind of a big picture where we are in the general fund. Here are just some notes of interest. There's no new full-time positions. There's a couple of part-time positions in the budget. No new full-time positions. No cost of living increase for full-time employees, although they will receive their longevity pay, which is they get, those who have over 3 years experience get $75 per year, up to 30 years. No increase in employee medical premiums. This is the 6th year in a row that we've been able to cover our employee health benefit without raising the premium on the county, which we pay 100% of the employees' coverage and basically about 80% of the dependent coverage. And we have not had to increase the cost on the employees either. No capitals, no capital items in the budget, as I mentioned. Nonprofits are down about 19.5. We're going to continue funding the jail work program at $106,000. 16.5 of that is a grant match. The city paid half of it. We paid half of it. This is the second and final year of that. We have 3 elections this year. We have the August, it's a county general, state primary in November, a national and state general, and then the city election in May, and the city reimburses us for the May election. And then our medical examiner, coroner budget is increased $34,000. Part of that is due to some digitization of their forms. Now we're working so that they can fill out their forms on a tablet out in the field and then send that to Nashville to the state office. And part of that is just from the increased number of autopsies and the autopsy rates. The autopsy is about $1,800 to have an autopsy done. And so we've exceeded the budget we've had for the last couple of years, and so we're having to make this adjustment. As far as capital goes, the state legislature and the governor, before they adjourned last March, appropriated about $1 million for Hamblen County. Out of state, they're called local government grants. Every city and every county was to receive a grant from the state. And basically, what the theory is behind that is the state, their revenues had come in so well. Now this is pre-COVID, over the last 2 or 3 years, that they were going to share that with the local governments. And so they passed the local government grant program, which gave us 5 areas that we could spend the money. Public safety is one, IT infrastructure, building repairs, paving, and then COVID prevention. In a conversation with Steve Sutherland I had Friday, the governor had basically told all his departments to look at reducing their budgets by 12%. And I asked Steve, I said, okay, and Steve's on the finance committee in the Senate, and I said, what does that mean to our local government grants? And he said it could mean a 12% decrease. So we won't know till the end of the month exactly how much money. And so what we can do toward the end of the month is decide how you want to spend the money. A couple of ideas are the Sheriff's Department vehicles. They've requested 7, I believe, this year. And then tasers, to replace the tasers they have that are out of service. And those are a couple of items. And then we've got some other things. And we'll bring you some ideas. And you guys can be thinking about that as
That
well.
would only be on capital.
Correct. You don't want to use one-time money for recurring expenses, but yeah, for capital. Let's see. Okay, the next fund is, here's the nonprofits, the changes in the nonprofits. They've been pretty much flat. 911 will go down $4,000. We fund the 911 service based on a formula and share the local portion with the city of Morristown. In the last couple of years, our part has gone up because of call volume. This coming year, our part will go down because our call volume has gone down compared to the cities. Youth Emergency Shelter, which Helen Ross McNabb Center operates now, we pay them on a per night rate if they house a juvenile before the juvenile's placed by the courts into either the foster system or an emergency situation. And we've had $15,000 in the budget and have used very little of that the past 2 or 3 years. So we're proposing that we reduce that to $12,500, leaving $2,500 for that. And then CEASE, which is the Domestic Violence Agency, which has dissolved. It dissolved last week. And so we had $8,000 funded for it. Now, what I'll bring to you later in the budget process is the state of Tennessee has approached the county about applying for and receiving a state grant to fund domestic violence advocacy services. And what that means is that the state would provide 80%, and then the local agency, which the name of the agency is the Harbor, will provide the match, the other 20%. That will fund 2 positions and some other services so that we can provide the advocates that have been provided by CEAS over the years and now by Safe Space out of Sevier County. So I'll bring all that to you later once we know exactly what the budget is. The grant application is being prepared now. And then Helping Hands Clinic is the free clinic for indigent individuals that operates out of the public housing. We use the Helping Hands Clinic to provide the medical for our jail work program, and we've been funding them the past couple of years at $5,000, and I'm proposing we increase that more to $10,000. Okay. On the garbage fund, we will be, again, following the pattern that we've developed several years ago. We'll be spending about $340,000 of fund balance. Revenue projections, part of that, sales tax and beer tax, down about $62,000. There's no new trucks in the budget proposal. Disposal fees, which we've exceeded budget the last 2 years, we've increased $65,000. So on the outside rate, you think about that, on the outside rate, tax rate, that's a penny. That's more than a penny on the outside rate. And then there's no new employees and no cost of living increase in the budget, in the garbage fund budget. Then on highway fund, our gas tax revenue is down about $82,000. There is $700,000 in paving, in money for paving in the budget. There's no new trucks. There are 2 new employees that Barry is requesting, and if you look at your budget document, you'll see a line about 2/3 of the way down one page. It's contracted services. It talks about contracting with private agencies. And the plan was for Barry to contract with a company to provide the flaggers. That didn't happen, and so he's proposing, and I'm not sure why, he can answer that. And then is to hire 2 laborers to do the flagging, be the flaggers for his patching crews and his paving crews. And so it's money transferred from one line to another. There's no cost of living increase for full-time employees in this budget as well. In debt service, in the debt service fund, we have calculated in there issuing the second $20 million for the school and Justice Center projects. So the interest for 6 months for those bonds is calculated in the budget. There's also a 5-cent property tax rate increase calculated for this fund, which would generate about $685,000 and would take care of all the debt needed to finance the school and the jail project. And here's the last slide is the school maintenance of effort. Maintenance of effort is the required amount of local dollars that Hamblen County has to provide the school system. It's at $27,156,000 this year, and there's $200,000 that's not listed there that was appropriated by the commission for this year, the year we're in. That was non-recurring, so it didn't count against the maintenance of effort. And so, so the $27,156,000 is the maintenance of effort for schools. And Mr. Chairman, that's the presentation except for the budget meeting calendar. Thursday is highway and garbage and debt service. Next week's general fund, then we skip a week, and then we have the schools.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Gahn has asked if there's any way that we can speed up his schedule.
Well, one thing, we were going into July primarily for reappraisal, but Mr. Ely told me today that they're going to finish this week because they haven't had many people come and challenge their appraisal. So we could have the certified tax rate this month. There's a possibility, or at least the first week of July, we could get it done.
That would be the quickest.
And last now, what the idea is in June 9th and 11th is to go through the general fund department by department. As you go through your books, and you're going to see that there's not much there as far as changes go. And if there are some departments that you don't want to review or you don't need to review, and there's only certain ones you want to review, then we can do it that way.
Well, some of them, I don't think it would take us long to panel. So those department heads probably need to be here the first meeting,
First meeting.
because you're correct. I mean, and I think some of the commissioners have a pretty good idea of where they'd like to see some cuts made, so they can tell you at that time.
Bill, we don't know what the growth is yet, do we? How about BDP? How about the education?
I don't know, no, I don't. I do know that they're getting 2.3 million in COVID money, but that's one-time money they're using for capital. No, I don't. And we won't wait until we get the certified tax rate.
Any other questions for Mayor Britton? Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to announcement, as the mayor said, next to last page of your packet is the budget meeting calendar, with Commissioner Goins' request to expedite things. If anyone has any ideas on that, please compile those, and we can look at those on Thursday when we have our next meeting. Other than that, we should.
I think we, real quick, I just think we shouldn't drag this out as long as we have before. And with this year's budget and everything, I think we could probably squeeze it in a little bit better time. So it's just something to think about. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. That being said, we stand adjourned.